There is a silent, devastating bankruptcy occurring inside your mind at this exact moment, and you do not even realize you are being robbed. Many of you know the profound, aching sensation of lying your head on the pillow at the end of the day, your heart racing, your mind clouded with a thick, heavy fog. You feel as though you have just run a grueling, bloody marathon, your muscles tense and your spirit completely drained. And yet, when you look back at your day, you realize you have not moved a single inch toward your own goals. Your bank account might have money in it, but your nervous system is entirely bankrupt. You are physically present in your life, but your vital energy has been completely stripped away. You blame yourself. You call yourself lazy. You tell yourself that you simply lack focus or discipline. Listen to me with absolute, unwavering clarity. This profound exhaustion is not a flaw in your character. You are the unknowing victim of the most sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar heist in the history of human civilization. We live in an era where massive technological empires, predictive algorithms, and emotional predators have meticulously studied the neurobiology of your brain. They understand your dopamine receptors better than you do. They have engineered a world designed to aggressively extract your life force by hijacking the most valuable currency in the universe, your attention. Today, we are going to permanently close the vault. I will reveal the 3 ancient pillars required to protect your energy, blind your predators, and reclaim the absolute sovereignty of your mind. But listen with deep, unshakable reverence. The 3rd pillar is a terrifying abyss. It is the silent execution chamber where an estimated 95% of people completely collapse, because to master it, you must face the one thing human beings fear more than anything else in the world. If you are truly ready to stop paying the world with your soul and assume the posture of an untouchable master, walk with me now. Settle your breathing. Ground your physical weight deeply into the floor beneath you. Let the frantic, desperate noise of the external world completely dissolve into the background. Before we can erect the heavy, impenetrable pillars of your defense, you must first deeply understand the catastrophic value of the treasure you are currently leaving unguarded. You must understand the physics of your psychological currency. Since you were a young child, society has taught you to be incredibly protective of your physical possessions. You install heavy iron locks on the doors of your house to protect your television. You memorize complex encrypted passwords to protect the digital numbers in your bank account. You would never dream of walking down a crowded, dangerous street and willingly handing out $100 bills to every single stranger who screams your name. You intuitively understand that money is a finite resource, acquired through the literal sacrifice of your physical labor and time. But you harbor a deeply toxic, deeply destructive illusion about your attention. Because your attention does not have a physical weight that you can hold in your hands, and because it does not have a visible price tag, you treat it as if it is cheap. You treat it as if it is an infinite resource. You hand it out freely to anyone who creates a loud enough noise, to every notification that vibrates in your pocket, and to every toxic, dramatic narrative that crosses your path. You must awaken to the brutal, undeniable reality of the universe. Your attention is not cheap. Your attention is the single most expensive, irreplaceable commodity in existence, because you do not pay for it with money. You pay for it with your life. Let us examine the profound intersection of modern neuroscience and ancient Taoist philosophy. In the martial arts of the Shaolin Temple, we operate on a fundamental, unbreakable law: Yi Dao, Qi Dao. Where the mind goes, the energy follows. Your brain is a highly demanding biological engine that consumes a massive amount of physical calories and oxygen to sustain conscious thought. When you place your attention on a specific object, a person, an argument, or a glowing screen, you are literally, physically transferring your vital life force from your internal reserves directly into that external entity. Imagine your attention as a high-powered, highly concentrated laser beam of pure, liquid energy. Wherever you point this laser, whatever you hold in its blinding light, you breathe life into it. You make it real in your nervous system. If you point this laser at your goals, at your physical health, at the architecture of your business, or at the cultivation of a quiet mind, you fertilize those realities. They grow, they expand, and they become the dominant physical structure of your life. But what happens when you point this magnificent, life-giving laser at the chaotic drama of people who do not care about you? What happens when you focus your profound cognitive power on a petty argument in the comment section of a stranger's video? What happens when you spend 3 hours staring into a screen, absorbing the manufactured outrage, the fear, and the toxic narratives of the global news cycle? I will tell you exactly what happens. You are taking the pure, unadulterated gold of your vital energy, and you are willingly pouring it down an open drain. You are literally financing the existence of your enemies and your anxieties using the biological currency of your own body. You are keeping the ghost alive by feeding it your own blood. When you become outraged by a trivial distraction, your amygdala violently fires. Your body releases a massive surge of cortisol. Your heart beats faster, and your blood pressure spikes. You are physically paying the heavy toll of the stress, while the algorithm, or the emotional vampire who provoked you, harvests your reaction for their own profit. They do not care if your attention is positive or negative. They do not care if you agree with them, or if you are furiously typing out a brilliant counter-argument. To the predator, and to the machine, engagement is engagement. Your anger is just as profitable to them as your joy. Your friction is the exact fuel they need to keep their engines running. To stop this invisible hemorrhage of your life force, you must adopt the ruthless, unyielding mindset of the cognitive billionaire. A true billionaire does not invest their capital into failing businesses, toxic assets, or chaotic ventures that offer absolutely zero return. They guard their treasury with an iron fist. They calculate the precise value of every single investment. You must become infinitely more protective of your cognitive treasury than a billionaire is of their gold. When a notification lights up your dark room, when a coworker attempts to drag you into their daily fabricated crisis, or when a memory of a past injustice tries to hijack your present moment, you must stop seeing these as harmless interruptions. You must see them as thieves standing at the heavy vault of your mind, demanding a massive withdrawal of your vital energy. You must look at the distraction and ask yourself with cold, calculating sovereignty, what is the return on this investment? Am I willing to trade a piece of my irreplaceable life force, a fraction of my limited time on this earth, to feed this noise? If the answer is no, you do not argue with the thief. You do not explain to the thief why you cannot pay them. You simply close the heavy iron vault. You sever the beam of your attention instantly, violently, and without a single ounce of apology. You must realize that ignoring the irrelevant is not an act of ignorance. It is the ultimate act of psychological self-preservation. It is the profound realization that if you do not ruthlessly dictate where your attention goes, the world will gladly step in and dictate it for you, leaving you bankrupt, exhausted, and hollowed out before you even realize you have been robbed. Understanding the physics of this invisible currency is the foundation of your empire. You now see the battlefield clearly. You recognize the silent thieves. But awareness alone is not a defense. To truly protect your energy against the relentless, highly engineered siege of the modern world, you must build the first heavy, impenetrable pillar of the sovereign mind. You must learn the martial art of strategic blindness. You have recognized the profound, devastating value of your psychological currency. You have understood that your attention is the lifeblood of your reality, and that handing it out to the chaotic, screaming noise of the modern world is an act of total self-destruction. But awareness of the thief is only the beginning of your defense. To truly protect your sovereign energy against the relentless, highly engineered siege of external manipulation, you must build the first heavy, impenetrable pillar of the untouchable mind. You must learn the devastating martial art of strategic ignorance. We call this the fortress of selective blindness. Society has infected you with a deeply toxic, highly exhausting illusion. You have been taught that to be an intelligent, responsible human being, You must be constantly informed about every single tragedy, every political argument, and every piece of trivial drama occurring across the entire globe. You believe that having an opinion on every single event is a sign of your moral superiority. Listen to the brutal, biological truth. Your ancient evolutionary brain was never designed to carry the suffocating weight of 8 billion people. Your ancestors only had to process the weather, the harvest, and the immediate physical threats within their small tribe. Today, you are forcing your central nervous system to process the manufactured outrage of the entire planet in real time. You are drowning in a dark, bottomless ocean of irrelevant data, and you are calling it intelligence. It is not intelligence. It is a fast, guaranteed track to complete neurological burnout and absolute psychological paralysis. The fortress of selective blindness is the cold, calculated decision to remain completely, unapologetically oblivious to that which does not serve your ultimate purpose or fall within your direct locus of control. It is the profound realization that the greatest intellectual virtue of the modern era is not the aggressive accumulation of information, but the ruthless, unapologetic exclusion of noise. You do not need to have a profound opinion on the lives of celebrities. You do not need to know what strangers are arguing about on the internet. You do not need to participate in the petty, exhausting office politics of your workplace. You must realize that every piece of information you allow past the gates of your eyes and your ears demands a physical tax from your vital energy. In the ancient traditions of the Shaolin temple, we observe the metaphor of the old master walking slowly through a massive, chaotic, screaming marketplace. The market is a sensory explosion. There are merchants aggressively shouting to sell their cheap goods. There are animals making loud, unpredictable noises. There are thieves whispering in the dark corners and angry peasants arguing violently in the mud over a few copper coins. If an unmastered man walks through this exact same marketplace, his attention is violently ripped in 100 different directions. He looks at the shouting merchant and feels desire. He looks at the arguing peasants and feels anxiety. He engages with the noise. He argues back. By the time he reaches the other side of the market, his pockets are entirely empty, his breath is short, and his vital energy has been completely drained by people he does not even know. Now look at the sovereign master walking the exact same dirt path. Does the master close his eyes and stumble blindly forward? No. His physical eyes are wide open so that he does not trip over the stones. He is fully aware of his environment. But his attention, the pure liquid gold of his cognitive focus, is absolutely not for sale. He sees the shouting merchant, but he does not look at the merchant. He hears the violent argument in the mud, but he does not grant those words a single millimeter of asylum inside his own mind. He acknowledges the existence of the chaos, but he refuses to attach his vital life force to it. He walks with a heavy, impenetrable shield of selective blindness. He arrives at his destination with his breathing perfectly calm, his mind as clear as glacial ice, and his internal treasury completely full and untouched. You must deeply understand the neuroscience of this martial discipline. Cognitive scientists refer to your working memory as cognitive load. Your brain only has a finite, microscopic amount of processing power available at any given second. Think of your working memory as a small, heavy oak table. If you allow the external world to dump the garbage of false urgencies, dramatic text messages, and irrelevant news alerts all over your table, there is absolutely no physical space left for you to build the architecture of your own empire. Every time your phone vibrates and you instantly look at it, you are abandoning your post. You are breaking your phalanx. You are allowing an external machine to dictate the movement of your internal energy. You are pushing your nervous system into sympathetic arousal, the fight or flight response, over absolutely nothing. To erect the first pillar, you must learn the power of not looking. When the drama unfolds, you look away. When the bait is dropped, you refuse to bite. You establish rigid, unbreakable boundaries around your consumption of information. You turn off the notifications. You stop scrolling through the endless parasitic feeds of the digital world. You let the arrows of their manufactured urgency strike the heavy bronze shield of your selective blindness and fall uselessly into the dirt. You starve the external chaos of the only oxygen it needs to survive, your gaze. You reclaim the remote control of your central nervous system. But the shield alone is not enough to secure the perimeter of your mind. While selective blindness protects you from the noise you encounter passively, there is a much more dangerous threat. What do you do when the parasite is already inside the walls? What do you do when the toxic energy is not coming from a stranger in the market, but from the habits, the environments, and the people you have willingly allowed into your life? To become truly untouchable, you cannot merely defend. You must learn how to actively cut the disease out of your life. This brings us to the second pillar of the sovereign mind. You have erected the heavy, impenetrable shield of the first pillar. You have learned the martial art of selective blindness, refusing to sell your attention to the chaotic, screaming merchants of the external world. You have successfully blocked the incoming arrows of manufactured outrage and false urgencies. But a fortress that relies entirely on high walls is still catastrophically vulnerable if the enemy is already sleeping comfortably inside the gates. What do you do when the parasite is not a stranger in the market, but someone you have willingly invited into your life? What do you do when the drain on your energy is not coming from a news feed, but from your own daily habits and the environments you choose to inhabit? To become a truly untouchable master of your psychological currency, you cannot merely defend. You must learn how to actively, violently cut the disease out of your life. This brings us to the second pillar of the sovereign mind, the blade of removal. In the quiet, disciplined courtyards of the Shaolin temple and in the ancient texts of practical Stoicism, there is a fundamental biological understanding of life, death, and growth. Observe the master gardener who cultivates an ancient, majestic bonsai tree. To ensure that the tree grows strong and remains perfectly balanced, the master does not merely water the soil and hope for the best. He takes a sharp, heavy pair of iron shears, and he ruthlessly, meticulously cuts away the dead branches. He slices off the diseased leaves. To an untrained observer, this looks like an act of cruelty. It looks like destruction. But the master gardener understands the brutal physics of the living organism. A dying branch does not simply sit there in neutral isolation. It actively, continuously drains the vital sap, the liquid energy, and the microscopic nutrients from the healthy parts of the tree. If you do not possess the courage to cut the dead wood, the entire organism will eventually wither, exhaust itself, and collapse under the weight of its own rot. Look closely at your own life. You are carrying a tremendous amount of dead branches, and you are wondering why you are so deeply, constantly exhausted. You are maintaining relationships out of pure nostalgia or a misplaced sense of obligation, even though these individuals leave you feeling physically drained, cynical, and empty after every single interaction. You are engaging in daily habits, endless scrolling, superficial entertainments, chronic complaining, that siphon your dopamine and leave your biological engine running on fumes. You have allowed your personal space to become a sanctuary for emotional leeches because your ego desperately wants to be perceived by society as a good, loyal, and accommodating human being. Society has deeply, maliciously confused you about the definition of kindness. You have been conditioned to believe that being a kind person means sacrificing your own mental health to endlessly absorb the chaotic projections of others. You believe that setting a heavy boundary is an act of cruelty or selfishness. I need you to completely eradicate this illusion from your nervous system. This is not kindness. This is a profound, pathetic lack of self-respect. When you allow a toxic person or a toxic habit to continuously cross the borders of your mind and steal your attention, you are not helping them. You are actively enabling their disease, and you are financing their dysfunction using your own psychological currency. You are watering a dead branch. To build the second pillar, you must draw the sword. You must learn the devastating peaceful aggressiveness of the absolute refusal. We call this the art of the sovereign no. A sovereign no is a complete, unbreakable sentence. It is not the beginning of a negotiation. It does not require a long, apologetic paragraph of justification. and it does not seek the other person's approval. When someone asks for your time, your energy, or your attention, and you know deep down in the biological core of your nervous system that this interaction will drain your treasury without yielding any true value, you look them directly in the eye and you deliver the heavy, unmovable strike of the blade. You simply say no. You decline the invitation. You block the number. You walk out of the room. You perform a surgical, bloodless removal of the parasite. I must warn you of the intense biological and social friction you will encounter when you finally draw this sword. When you begin to cut the dead branches, the parasites will scream. The people who have spent years comfortably feeding off your unregulated empathy, the individuals who have relied on your lack of boundaries to dump their emotional garbage into your lap, will become absolutely furious. They will accuse you of changing. They will call you selfish. They will call you arrogant. They will attempt to induce a massive wave of guilt in your limbic system, hoping that the sudden social pressure will cause you to drop the sword, apologize, and let them back into the vault. You must brace your physical body for this impact, and you must remain entirely unshakable. The absolute, undeniable price of being the sovereign owner of your own mind is that you are going to profoundly disappoint the leeches. Let them be disappointed. Let them be angry. Let them wander the earth searching for another vulnerable host to drain. Their emotional reaction to your boundary is not your responsibility. Your only supreme obligation in this universe is to the integrity of your own vital energy. The moment you make the cut, the exact second you permanently sever the tie with a draining habit, a toxic environment, or an energy vampire, you will experience a biological phenomenon. You will feel a sudden, terrifying rush of oxygen to your brain. You will feel a massive, invisible weight physically lift off your shoulders. The massive cognitive load that was being secretly consumed by maintaining those parasitic connections is instantly, entirely refunded directly back into your central nervous system. You will suddenly have the energy to build your business. You will suddenly have the patience to be present with the people who actually matter. You have stopped the bleeding. You have cleaned the wound. You have taken your territory back by force. You have raised the heavy bronze shield of selective blindness to completely block the chaotic noise of the external world. You have drawn the sharp iron blade of removal to violently cut away the internal parasites and the dead branches of your own life. You have successfully cleared the battlefield of your mind. You have closed the heavy doors of the vault. You are finally entirely alone with yourself. And this is exactly where the ultimate, most devastating trap of the human experience is waiting for you in the dark. Because when you successfully remove all the noise, you are left with nothing but the absolute silence. And for an estimated 95% of the human population, the silence of their own mind is a fate significantly worse than death. They build the shield, they draw the sword, and then they completely collapse in terror at what they have created. This brings us to the third, final, and most terrifying pillar of the sovereign mind. We must now walk into the abyss. The fortress of your mind is now entirely sealed. You have raised the heavy bronze shield of selective blindness, completely blocking the chaotic screaming noise of the external world. You have drawn the sharp iron blade of removal, violently cutting away the internal parasites, the toxic environments, and the dead branches of your own life. You have successfully cleared the battlefield. You have closed the heavy iron doors of the vault, and for the first time in perhaps your entire adult life, you are finally, entirely alone with yourself in the absolute quiet. And this is exactly where the ultimate, most devastating trap of the human experience is waiting for you in the dark. Because when you successfully remove all the noise, you are left with nothing but the silence. And for an estimated 95% of the human population, the silence of their own mind is a fate significantly more terrifying than the chaos of the market. We must now walk into the abyss to build the third pillar of the sovereign mind. Why do so many of you fail when you attempt to protect your attention? Why do you delete the addictive applications from your phone, block the toxic individuals from your life, and swear an oath to your own discipline, only to completely relapse 3 days later. You relapse because you suddenly realize a horrifying, deeply uncomfortable truth about human psychology. The thieves that were stealing your attention did not break into your vault by force. You were secretly leaving the back door wide open for them. You were willingly giving your attention to the manufactured drama, the endless scrolling, and the toxic relationships because they provided a highly effective, highly stimulating distraction from yourself. You were using the external chaos as a sophisticated form of psychological escapism. Listen to the heavy, brutal reality of your biology. When you sit alone in a perfectly quiet room, stripped of all digital stimulation and external friction, your brain's default mode network violently activates. The dopamine levels in your nervous system drop to their natural, unmedicated baseline. Without the loud, flashing lights of the world to distract you, the internal waters of your mind begin to settle. And as the muddy water becomes clear, the heavy, rotting things that have been hiding at the bottom of the lake slowly begin to rise to the surface. You are suddenly forced to confront the ghosts of your own unfulfilled potential. You are forced to hear the quiet, agonizing whisper of your own insecurities. You must look at the profound gap between the person you currently are and the person you know you were destined to become. For the unmastered mind, this confrontation is absolute agony. The silence is incredibly loud. The nervous system begins to panic. The ego screams for relief, begging for a distraction to numb the pain of self-awareness. And so, the estimated 95% of people surrender. They cannot bear the weight of their own internal reality. They panic. They reach for the glowing screen. They send a text message to the toxic person they just cut out of their life, and they willingly unlock the heavy iron vault. They invite the thieves back inside, desperately begging the world to take their attention, simply so they do not have to spend another second alone with their own shadows. They trade their sovereignty for a cheap, momentary anesthetic. To become a true, untouchable master of your vital energy, you must construct the third pillar. You must master the discipline of the abyss. You must learn the ancient, terrifying martial art of sitting completely still inside the fire of your own internal friction. When you remove the external distractions and the wave of anxiety, boredom, and psychological discomfort hits your physical body, you do not run. You anchor your feet to the earth. You lower your center of gravity. You breathe deeply into the bottom of your lungs, and you simply observe the panic. In the Shaolin temple, when a monk holds a grueling, agonizing physical posture for hours, his muscles burn and his mind screams at him to drop his arms and escape the pain. But the monk understands that the urge to escape is merely a biological illusion. It is just a sensation passing through the nervous system. The sovereign mind does not obey the sensation. It watches the sensation until it completely dissolves into nothingness. You must apply this exact same ruthless discipline to your attention. When the urge to distract yourself arises, when the phantom vibration of your phone calls to your dopamine receptors, you must look directly at the ghost of your anxiety and refuse to blink. You sit in the heavy, uncomfortable silence. You let the boredom wash over you like a cold, biting wind. You endure the withdrawal symptoms of the modern world. You sit in the absolute darkness of your own mind until your eyes adjust, and the terrifying monsters you thought were hiding in the shadows are revealed to be nothing more than empty illusions created by your own fear. By mastering the discipline of the abyss, you achieve the ultimate psychological liberation. You realize that you do not need the external world to stimulate you. You do not need the drama of other people to make you feel alive. When you are no longer terrified of your own silence, you become completely immune to the bait of the emotional predators and the algorithms. They can scream, they can dance, and they can manufacture an infinite amount of chaotic urgency, but they can no longer touch you. You have starved them of your fear, and you have starved them of your need for escape. You have built a fortress that is sustained entirely from the inside out. I know the deep, agonizing exhaustion you have been carrying for so many years. I know the profound, quiet tragedy of spending your entire life acting as a massive, unregulated donor of energy to a world that never gave anything back. You have poured the liquid gold of your attention into bottomless pits, into ungrateful people, and into a digital machine that views you merely as a battery to be drained. You thought you were simply participating in the modern world. You thought you were being kind, informed, and connected, but you were slowly bleeding to death on an invisible battlefield. That era of your life is now officially dead. The vault is closed. The biological hemorrhage has been permanently stopped. You now possess the ancient, heavy architecture of the untouchable mind. You hold the shield of selective blindness to deflect the noise. You carry the sharp blade of removal to sever the parasitic ties. And you have mastered the dark discipline of the abyss, proving that your sovereign silence is infinitely more powerful than their manufactured chaos. The thieves are out there right now, standing at the gates of your perception with their hands outstretched, aggressively demanding that you pay for their existence with your focus. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises and the world knocks on the door of your mind, what will you do? Will you obediently open the wallet of your soul and hand over your irreplaceable life force? Or will you erect the heavy iron pillars of your sovereignty and force the parasites to starve in the cold? The choice is yours. The path is open. Amituofo.